Welcome to the Allison Bramlett podcast. I'm so excited you're here with us today. I am joined today by Pam Parish, one of my dearest friends, faith family, prayer and power partners, and soul sisters that the Lord put us together many years ago. So today you're going to like, share, rate, review. But if you can't say something nice, just don't say anything at all. So, Pam, welcome, sis.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here with you.
Now,
It's
this
always
is
good when I see your face.
I love seeing you. For you behind the scenes, I just want to give anyone a little inspiration that's trying to do a podcast or grow or learn that this is my third attempt to do this with Pam this morning because technology is not my gifting and the Holy Spirit is stretching me and growing me. So if you're growing, being stretched, I just want to say don't grow weary in well doing. Keep pushing. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about today. Pam wrote a great book called Redemptive Connections. Actually, how many books have you written, Pam? Like five?
This is my fourth, but the first three were devotionals. So it's much easier to write, in my opinion, because I
Okay.
love the word. I love the Lord. Like if I could spend my entire every day, all day in the word, I would. So devotions they're super easy for me. It was intimidating to start at a blank page and know I had to have chapters. So
Well,
this is my first like chapter book.
yeah, and not look, okay, I wrote a chapter book and I wrote mine in like 14 font and double spaced. So it looks like a really good book, but you can read it like an hour and a half. Like this, it took me time. Do you understand? Like this book is for real. And then I told my husband it's going to become like a yearly book, an annual book for me because it deals so much. It is your personal story, but it's a tool
Mhm.
for freedom. And you and I became soul sisters on a trip to Israel. And now we've
We
been twice.
did. I love that the Lord put us together on his holy land. I
Yes.
love that. It was a fantastic trip. We got to be roommates the entire time, and we actually have done that twice now,
Yes.
in Israel and been roommates the entire time. And there's just nothing like one experiencing the presence of God where he walked, where Jesus walked,
Mhm.
and also being able to develop such a funny, deep, amazing sister bond that
Yes.
we were able to develop over time, including you saving me when I left my makeup in a city like way away, and you allowed me to use your makeup. As you say, you allow me to paint the barn
That's
with
right.
paints.
We paint the barn together. And you know what, though? We did 10 days together. I just want to tell you this. Not one time did I ever get tired of you, if that helps you any. If I've never, I don't know if I ever said that or not. Like, I love the way that we function together in the sense of, I don't know, it was very easy for me. And I was thankful for it. But you have become a safe place for me and a safe place for so many. And when the Lord put us together, I do believe, you know, it was about a divine connection.
Yeah.
And you and I don't believe things happen um, by accident. And today I really wanted to talk about trauma. I want to talk about your story. I want to talk about connection homes, how people can be involved as a church and as an individual. We give and sow
Yeah.
into connection homes. We believe in each other's ministries and what God's called us to do. And we are kingdom builders together. And we do that. But I really want you to share those things. But I believe everyone's hurt. Anyone listening, you've had hurt. And
Mhm.
I don't believe that there's like this patent on pain. It's, you know, you can't say mine's different. Everyone experiences it. But the thing I've learned over the years is I can't control the way I get hurt, but I can control the way I get healed.
Mhm.
And what I found in reading your book recently is it shares the story of your family, the story of how God birthed a ministry, a calling, a life calling, really, I believe. And but also how you learn from that and how you understand that trauma doesn't have to paralyze you. It doesn't have to be your cage. It can be your catalyst. So I just really want to pass you the ball. If you're listening today and you've dealt with any type of trauma, if you are looking for a God connection, you're going to want to continue to listen. And then you're going to want to look up Connection Homes.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I love the phrase that we can't choose. We don't choose the way we're hurt, but we can choose the way that we heal. And I think for me, in starting Connections Homes, which is a ministry that I began 10 years ago in June, that matches youth that are aging out of foster care that don't have families. They like these kids are turning 18, 19, 20, 21, and they're exiting a system that's built on dependence. So everybody around them, kind of their entire life is done for them or on their behalf, made decisions on their behalf. They've um, done everything for them. And then all of a sudden, happy birthday, you're on your own. You have to do it all on your own. So we take these kids and we match them to families who step into their story and say, I'm going to make a lifelong commitment to you. And it was born out of our own story. My husband and I have 8 young adult daughters, 7 are adopted, 5 after the age of 18. And that all happened between 2006 and 2013. Like God really kind of just blew up our family. We dove into the deep end. And I think at the time when I stepped into foster care, I was stepping into it because we wanted to add to our family. So
Yeah.
there wasn't like I've written devotionals now that call to the heart of God for foster care and adoption, but I didn't have those devotionals. So we didn't walk into foster care because we thought James 1:27, pure and undefiled religion. I mean, like we didn't do it for that reason. We were Christians, we were believers, so we believed that everything that we did in our life was God led, right?
Yeah.
So we prayed about it. But it wasn't that God spoke to us and said, "For me, you need to do this." We did it to add to our family. So we thought we were going to adopt one child. We had one child biologically. We were going to adopt one child, and we were going to be a family of 4 off to Disney World and cruises and life ever after, right? Well, then God stepped in, and I started becoming aware through various circumstances of these other girls and their stories. Disrupted adoptions, trafficking victims, homeless young people, aging out of foster care, and they became a part of our family.
Mhm.
So God really gave me this vision for these young people. 21,000 young people age out of our foster care system in America every single year. That doesn't include the kids who were never a part of foster care who should have been, that are homeless now because they ran away from an abusive situation at 18, which is the story of 2 of my daughters.
Yeah.
So all of these stories started coming to my purview, and I thought through prayer, like maybe there are other people that are as crazy as I am, and they would be willing to step into the story of a young person who's 18 to 21, 18 to 24 is the age group we go up to, and be that lifelong connection, that person who says, I'm home for you. Like, even if you never live in my home, I am home for you.
Yeah.
And you know what that feels like. I mean, like you and Jeff, you have become home for so many people through the years, even if they've never physically lived in your home.
Yeah.
So that's the idea of connections homes. But what happened in the process of both our family growing in connections homes is I was faced with trauma, with these kids who had been abused and used and manipulated in ways that I could never imagine. Although I also have a background, my childhood was fraught with abuse, and um, my dad was an alcoholic. He quit drinking when I was a young adult, but in my childhood, he was an alcoholic. My mom suffered from severe mental health issues, and it wasn't an easy dynamic to grow up in. And I remember all of my childhood having family who would come in and rescue me at moments. They would show up and take my brothers and me to spend the night, and you think it's fun, you think it's all this, but you don't realize until you're older and you start reflecting exactly what was happening.
Mhm.
Um, so I do know that a lot, and it took years before God could reveal to me that a lot of why I do the work I do today is a reflection of me reaching back and trying to help 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old Pam in
Yeah.
ways that I wish I had been helped. But so we end up going down this journey in our family. I'm going to go back in history just a little bit. We had 3 daughters at the time, 2 from severe trauma backgrounds. And I go to this conference in Nashville, and I hear this woman speak about trauma and trauma-informed care. Her name was Karen Purvis. And it blows my mind because I thought, I'm doing everything wrong. Everything I'm doing from a parenting perspective is wrong. Everything that I thought would work, that has worked, all the biblical parenting principles. It's not that the Bible's wrong, but it's that trauma adds another layer
Mhm.
of how to deal with someone when they're in fight, flight, and freeze mode, how to help someone whose brain is used to being hyper vigilant, how to help those neural pathways calm down so that you can actually have a productive conversation. Like all of that is skills and
Yes.
things that you can learn. So I learned all of those. And in learning them, I also learned that as an adult who had herself experienced trauma, even though the Holy Spirit had done a miraculous healing work in my life, I still had what is considered a dismissive adult attachment style. And what that means is that because I was the oldest child, because I always had to protect my brothers from whatever was going on in the home, I am also a hyper vigilant person. Like I can read a room,
Mhm.
especially if there's anger or this undercurrent. Like I pick up on it really easy, and I self protect. So emotions are dangerous because emotions can go either way. They can be super happy or they can be super bad. So I stray away from them because it doesn't help you to make a logical,
Yeah.
informed, and quick decision. Here I am in a household. I don't think I've said this yet, but all 8 of our girls are girls. All 8 of our kids are girls. Like I'm in a household with 8
Emotionals.
18 to 20-year-old girls and one husband and a boy dog. Our lab was a boy. And I don't like emotions. So God has a sense of humor. And so I realized that not only did I have to learn these skills to work on my girls, but I also had to start doing some work myself in acknowledging the way I handle emotional input. And, and there's nothing wrong with it. I still don't like, I'm not a heavily emotional person myself, pretty logical. I'm about business. And, but when it comes to people that I care about, my girls that I love, I have to acknowledge that and be able to meet them where they are, regardless of what I feel, which means for me, practically sitting down on their level, rubbing their back,
Yeah.
letting their emotions flow because they don't need me to solve their problem. And I could solve it 5 ways till Sunday. I solved it 5 seconds after it happened, but they don't care about that. All they're having these deep emotions, and I just need to let them experience it and trust them as their brain begins to come back online, that they can express to me what they need from me, but in the emotion they can't. So that's really what the genesis for Redemptive Connection, the book, is that in doing that with my own girls and walking this journey from teenagehood to adulthood, where so many of the trauma tools
Mhm.
were geared toward younger kids, and I had to adapt them to girls that were going out into a world that didn't care about trauma. The police officer's not going to care about trauma. The boss isn't going to care about trauma. Prayerfully, you get a spouse that cares about trauma, but maybe not,
Yeah.
right? Your roommate may not care about it. So I can't kid glove it and over enable them to the point that they can't function in society outside of my
Mhm.
home, but I also can't ignore
Yeah.
that they are experiencing these things. So that's the genesis of this toolbox called Redemptive Connection that really helps parents as they're navigating these years where the consequences are really big,
Yeah.
yet you still need to show up and love them while letting them build some self-esteem.
Well, I just wanna impart real quick.
Mhm,
To me, this book, though, is for all relationships. I
mhm,
just really wanna clarify. I understand that to me, you wrote it from your storyline,
mhm.
but in every relationship, in your work environment, I don't care where you're at, everyone's dealing with their own hurts, their own traumas. I mean, we all bring our baggage in the room. I know we should be dropping it off with the baggage keeper, Jesus. I mean, that's the plan. But sometimes you are Jesus with skin on, and you're the person they need to drop their baggage with.
Yes.
And this gives the tools to be a good baggage keeper. And then I understand we got to give that to the Lord ourselves. But I just felt encouraged. But one of the things I love, I thought page 175, it's chapter 11. It's called Survival for Fitting Connection.
Mhm.
And how, man, when I started reading that, I thought how many times we were made for connection. God created us to be, but how the enemy comes in and what we think is protection is actually a way to stop us from true connection. And that's what you were,
Yeah.
and I think that there's so many just great keys, and what I love is your story, how it started out. You and I have talked before, and you said earlier today, and I not on this, so they're going to hear it for the first time, but you talked about moving from success to significance. You heard a
Mhm.
sermon, and this shifted your entire life. It really changed where the trajectory of where you were headed.
Mhm.
But what happened is, I believe you were spirit led enough, Pam. And this is what's beautiful to me. The little girl on the inside of you that God has helped heal
Mhm.
decided connection was more important than survival.
Mhm.
Because that you made a choice to actually become a part of something that was not logical, and you're a logical person.
Very logical. Yeah, I mean, I think what the Lord revealed to me a couple of years ago is that what I do in every aspect of my life today that He's called me into, it is connection, because connection is what saved me.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus is what saved me, but it's my connection to Jesus that saved
Yes.
me. But at 16 years old, I met a boy at Walmart. On my first day of work, it was June. Interesting. It was
You.
June 1st, 1989, that I started my first day at Walmart, and I met the man who is now my husband. Um, and June 1st is when I started Connections Homes, and we just celebrate our 10th anniversary. So God is in those little details that just says, I have appointed you, I have assigned you. Like, I didn't plan that. I didn't plan either of those things. But at 16 years old, this broken girl from a broken home, loving family, but just deeply broken in their own ways, um, starts a job at Walmart. And I meet a boy. I'm on register 4. He's on register 6. We start making conversation. We go on our first date on June 17th. And we'll be married 33 years this September. But the boy didn't just change my life, his family did,
Yeah.
because where I had come out of a broken family, his grandfather is one of 12 kids, 11 boys, 1 girl. All 12 of them, the girl married a deacon and an elder in a church, but the 11 boys have all pastored churches across the Southeast. And the story goes that there was a great great grandmother in the Parish family who prayed every morning and every night that her um, generations that followed would serve the Lord,
I
that
love
all of them would serve the Lord.
Mhm.
And to this day, that's 100% true. They may stray, but they always come back. Steve has an uncle that strayed from the Lord, and literally the Lord brought him back when he was sitting on the toilet. I was
Yeah.
like, you were on the throne, and God brought you to the throne.
Throne zone.
But um, I'm married into this covenant, right? Like, so, and God used my in laws and their relationship with the Lord to teach me in so many ways how to be the wife, the mother, the woman that I am today. And I didn't connect the two. That we were 19 when we got married. We're from Kentucky. It's what you do.
I'm from
Um,
Georgia. That's all we do here too. Don't kid
I
yourself.
mean, small
I
town. I mean, you graduate high school and get married.
yeah.
But so we got married at 19, and his parents became de facto mentoring family for me.
Yeah.
Like, it's exactly what we do. Like that, though I fold my towels the way my mother-in-law folds her towels. A lot of the recipes, my mother was a great cook. So a lot of my cooking comes from my mother. But I also emulate a lot of my mother-in-law's cooking. I decorate for Christmas the way my mother-in-law does. So I think instinctively in me, where society would say at 18 it's too late. Like, they're shaped, they're
Yeah.
who they're going to be. I knew deep down that that wasn't true, because I'm not the same person that I was or
Yeah.
would have been if I hadn't have met my husband and been influenced by his parents and ultimately influenced by Jesus.
Mhm.
But it's never too late. Redemption isn't restoration. So I make this point in the book.
That's such a good word. That is so important to stop and talk about that. Redemption is not always restoration, because
Mm-mm.
restoration happens in different ways for different people. And sometimes you will be restored to new relationships and not old ones. God does both.
Exactly, exactly, and so many times we step into people's story, especially if you're a family stepping into someone that's coming out of foster care, you think, "Oh my gosh, they just missed out on so much of childhood, like, they never went to Disney World, they never went to," and some of those things you can restore, like, you can restore some experiences, right? But you can never give them back 18 years of Christmases that they didn't have with their family, like, you can't do that. But what God is in the business of is redemption,
Yes, he
which
is.
is turning the things that were ashes in our life into beauty, and bringing that oil of mourning and making it the oil of joy. And, all of those things is what God does. And I always say, like, it breaks my heart when I see somebody addicted to drugs or having an abortion or living a lifestyle that I wouldn't choose. It breaks my heart, and I don't want them to continue in that hurt and that pain.
Mhm.
But I also know that no matter how deep that hurt and pain is, or how far away it is from what God's best might be for their life, that He can use it.
Yeah.
Because just like me being a 16-year-old at Walmart, and then here 30 years later, God is using that. Who I am today is actually God using that 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Um, who at the time was far away from Jesus,
Mhm.
and very broken. But God has gone back in my story from at the darkest moments and said, that's what I'm going to use in
Yeah.
you. And that's what He does for everybody. So even when I look with sadness on somebody in the deepest, darkest place of their life, I know that God doesn't leave you there. He didn't leave me there, and He's not going to leave you there. And there can be redemption. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It may take 30 years
Yes.
before you can look back and make sense of what's happened. So part of the reason I wrote Redemptive Connection is to give families, parents especially, that mindset, because we catastrophize. Like, you're a mom,
Mhm.
like, you're expecting your kid to text at 9:30 to give you an update on when they're going to be home. It's
Yes.
9:31. Before it gets to 9:31 in 10 seconds, they've been in a car accident, they've been kidnapped, they're already on a plane to Afghanistan. Like your mind as a parent can go to all of these places just like
Yes.
that and catastrophize. And what happens, especially when our kids are doing things that we don't necessarily agree with or like,
Mhm.
um, is that we start seeing them through the lens of that catastrophe. Something that's not even manifest in their life. They're going to live in jail for the rest of their life, and they're never going to have a job, and some of the smartest people that I know were some of the worst teenagers.
Yes.
Because they just had that leadership strength, that leadership thing in them, and they were like, I am not going to do it your way. I'm going to do it my way. And then they had to learn. They had to take their bumps and bruises. Now, I'm not saying you just let your kid go out. That's not the point of the book. The book says there's boundaries, and there's ways that you deal with things. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. If your kid is on drugs, or your kid has a bad peer group, or they can't keep a job, or any of these things, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It means that there's something going on in their heart and their minds that needs a little bit of connection and intervention.
Yeah.
And there can be a redemption to their story.
Well, and what I love is it's really the story of how the Lord loves us,
Mhm.
is what I felt like, and how He saves to the uttermost. It's
Mhm.
never too late, and I think it's like you were saying, He gives beauty for ashes. I mean, when you see ashes, you think nothing can
Yep.
come from this. I mean, what do you do with that? And when God says, "I can make broken things beautiful,"
Mhm.
which is all of us. I
It's
mean,
the
we
valley of
all.
dry bones coming to life, right?
Yes. I mean, that's what He does, and I think it's leaning into being spirit-led. I think so many times for me, it's being a faith-led leader, a faith-led friend, a faith-led parent, a
Mhm.
faith-led pastor, whatever, God, rather than a fear-led. And
Mhm.
and really catastrophe, when I look through that, it is the lens of I'm either thinking through fear or I have to think through faith, and those are choices. Someone told me one time, they said, "You're just committed to saying and doing the things of God." I said, "Yes." I said, "But that commitment started off as a choice."
Yep.
Every commitment, like, I think you are committed to these families and these connections and giving people the tools and equipping them. But it started off as a choice, as, "Hey, I'll take one."
Mhm.
I mean, you didn't even know what you were getting, but then you stay
No.
committed to your choice.
Yep.
And that's really what you talked about learning from your in-laws, is a covenant. God has a commitment to us that says no matter your behavior, no matter what you do, no matter where you come from, no matter even of where you think you're going, I am committed to loving you. I am committed to being for you. I am committed to making a way out for you. Now I get to choose that.
Mhm.
His choice toward me is right. And to me, it's showing you how to make right choices toward people.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, in my heart, in talking to you, when did the spirit-led thing come off in your life? Like, when did you realize you were with your girls? And I mean, I know that you thought, okay, I've got to move from more faith than from fear. Because I think we all do. I mean, like there had to be some moments where you're thinking, they're running away. I can't control them. I mean, maybe I'm being, I mean, like, Lord, we've laid down our life. I isn't it funny how you can do what God's called you to do? A promised land living, we've come out of the wilderness, Lord, I'm being spirit led. I'm going in the promised land. But in the promised land, I got to kill my big giants myself. I have to make the fire. There's not a cloud, fire by night and a cloud by day. I had to build my own house. I've got to pick the grapes. There's no food showing up.
Mhm.
That sometimes when we see opposition, we think that we've missed God.
Yeah. Well, I was just reading in the book of Exodus, where Moses comes back into to Egypt, and they're sharing with the Hebrew people that God has promised them gold and silver and the clothes off of the Egyptians' back, and that your sons and daughters will wear this, and you're going to have victories. Like this is fantastic. We're getting out of here, right? Well, that's at the very beginning. That's before there's 10 plagues to come. The abuse on the Hebrew people is about to get 10 times worse because Egypt is going to take out Moses's words on the Hebrew people. So it's like, it's the same thing with us. Like we can have all these great promises and know that God's doing all these great things, but we still have to walk through it. And the walking through it can be quite painful. So I think to answer to your question of when did I kind of make that shift? Well, it came, one of our girls, we still had 3. There was a lot in this time period before God really expanded. There was a lot of singing and a lot of kind of God having to clarify the call that he had on our life. And one of my girls was running away. She was being highly deceptive. We had all the things. We had all the keyboard logger things so we could see what they were doing on the computer and all kinds of things. She had multiple Facebook accounts. It didn't matter what we did. She would go to school and get on somebody else's phone and just all the things. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, she started this series of running away and putting herself in extremely dangerous situations. And my husband was out looking for her one night, and I was brooding to the Lord. And I always say, like, the Holy Spirit isn't the best guest at your pity party. He comes in and turns over tables. But I had invited the Holy Spirit into this pity party that I was having for myself. And I heard the Lord say quietly in my spirit, "Who told you that you get to write her story?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of all, that is very insensitive to the pity party that I'm having at the moment. Second of all, he reminded me of the verse in Hebrews that says that God is the author and the finisher of our faith. And just gently reminded me that I have nothing to do with her salvation. Like I wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole. I have nothing to do with that. Jesus did all that on the cross. Yeah. But somehow I think I have something to do because I call myself mom with how she finishes her story. Like somehow I think that's my job. And it's not. It's still the author's job.
Yeah.
I'm just a character in the story.
Yes.
He's got the pen and he's doing the writing. So I think that was the moment that I was like, I've got to take my hands off of this a little bit. Like I still need to be the parent. There still needs to be boundaries. God has still called me to this role, but I don't have to control all of it. Like I can be at peace in the chaos without catastrophizing things. And I think that was the genesis moment for God really changing the way both my husband and I saw our role in the stories of our girls, that has allowed us. I was just talking to one of my girls yesterday, and I joked and I said, you know what? God's given me the gift of objectivity. Like that's my gift, which gets on like so many of my girls' nerves because I'm objective. I'm always going to be like, well, this is this side of the story, and this is this side of the story. And they're like, can you just take my side and tell me that I'm right? Well, you're not necessarily, you may be right a little bit, but you're not necessarily all the way right. But I think that was the moment that God really put that gift planted that in my husband and I, both of our hearts as parents, to back up and say, we can't put this in a box and tie a ribbon on it and say it's finished. There's a whole lot more to this that's going to manifest over time and apart from us.
Mhm.
So we just need to be faithful with this moment in time and ask God to give us the wisdom and discernment for today and
You know,
not try to worry so much about tomorrow.
many years ago, and if people have listened to the podcast before, they've heard me say this. The Lord told me, Allison, you're a believer. I'm the Savior.
Mhm.
But I think as adults, as parents, as leaders, as managers, whatever you do, I mean, he will give you wisdom, he'll give you insight, he'll lead you to do things, but ultimately at the end, it's on him. You know what? And I think that that's something that we all kind of have to come to. And when you come to that point, it is the crossroads that like
Yeah.
changes your life to where it takes the pressure off. So
Mhm.
I really believe if people are listening today, there's two things I really want them to know is that trauma does not have to paralyze you. It doesn't have to stop you.
Mhm.
You have a trauma story. I believe everyone has a trauma story because we've all had traumatic moments.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that doesn't have to be the end of your story, and you don't have to build the walls to keep people out. You can use it as the podium
Mhm.
to tell people which way to go. I really believe that. And then the next thing is if you've been looking, thinking, Lord, I don't know what to do with my life. I really want you, if you don't care, in the next 5 minutes, and then we'll close. When you did the thing about moving from success to significance, I think that there's people listening tonight, and we live in a culture where it's about, likes, subscribers. And I know I even share, please subscribe, like, rate. I get that because I actually believe what we're saying and what you do and what we do is necessary. The Lord wants people to hear it. I believe the right people need to hear it. If
Mhm.
you're listening today, I believe this is for you.
Mhm.
But I truly believe that real success is for me as a grandma. Recently, I did a little video of my grandchildren worshiping in our kids' town and my kids helping us. And my real success is knowing that I've imparted eternity into my family.
Yes. Mhm.
And you guys, if the Lord may be calling you to something and it may not be what the culture calls. I mean, what you do is adopting kids out of foster care, so that means there's no paycheck with them. I just wanna
Mm.
say this, honestly,
Mm-mm.
this is where I think people get real confused. I mean, and I'm thankful for foster care. I believe it's a gift. We need great foster care, and I'm thankful there's a system that helps people that foster children.
Yep.
But when that ends, are you still in the covenant? Are you
Mhm.
still in commitment? And then how to be really spiritual mothers and fathers in people's lives. You don't have to, I believe there's always someone that you're spiritually mothering and fathering around. So I kind of wanted to, how do you think success today can be done in that and significance? And then kind of close us out with how people could be involved or how they can plug in and know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I say, I work with a lot of 18 to 24-year-olds, including my own kids who are now all moving into their 30s. But my day to day life is in this age group. And I think it's interesting that in that age group, you struggle with it more vocally, this whole purpose and calling thing. Like, I got to find my purpose, I got to find my calling. But I know a lot of older people that still struggle with it. They've just kind of abdicated to, oh, well, I'm just in the rat race, right? And so I always tell our young people that we all have the same purpose in life. And that purpose in life, and if you get this, if you could really get this, then God can lead you anywhere. Your purpose in life is to wake up today, seek the Lord, honor him, and be obedient with what he's put in front of you today. If that is flipping the burger at McDonald's, then you flip the best darn burger at McDonald's that you can possibly flip.
Yes.
Because the manager at McDonald's is going to notice you flipping that burger and he's going to make you a shift supervisor. And then as that shift supervisor, you're going to get some experience like leading your peers and leading your coworkers, and then maybe you might get made assistant manager. And then maybe you can get to manage your own store. And then maybe you begin to learn about leadership concepts and have your own entrepreneurial business. Like, that's the way life is, that
Yeah.
God honors your faithfulness in the small aspects of today. It's not about, I'm going to hang my hook on God's called me to do this one thing, and that's the shining North Star in my life, and everything has to lead me to that. Sometimes it is. We all know the stories of the person who woke up at 12 and God said, you're going to be a pastor. but those are few and far between.
Mhm.
The majority of us have to be faithful in every moment of every day. So I've done everything in my life. I've worked at Arby's. I've been a reception at a car dealership. I've managed music artists. Oh my gosh, I've done so many things. I was a corporate executive for years for a mobile technology company. And I thought at that point when I was VP of marketing for this mobile technology company, and the people I worked with on a daily basis were Microsoft executives and Palm executives and MTV and VH1, because it was back in when the ringtones were a big thing. Like, I thought I'd reached the pinnacle of this small Kentucky girl who first job was at Parcheesi's Pizza. That here I am, like, jetting around the world with all these corporate executives and getting to do this really cool stuff. Then God called me to Atlanta, um, and to a church here in Atlanta. Our friend who worked at the church called and said, "Hey, my church is looking for a marketing and web person. That's what my husband and I do. Would you consider it?" We both said no.
Mhm.
And then they said, "Can we fly you to Atlanta for the weekend?" And we're like, "Sure, free trip to Atlanta." And the pastor that weekend preached a message called Moving from Success to Significance. And it changed my life because I realized that so much of what we think is our purpose and so much of what we sometimes think is like the pinnacle, which that's exactly what I thought was having this high corporate job, having this high pay. I drove a Mercedes at the time. There's nothing wrong with driving Mercedes. Little did I know that 4 years later, because of my family, I have to trade it for a minivan, but that's how God works, right? Um, but so much of our gets hung up on these things. Like, I want to be a social media influencer, or I want to have, if I don't have this many likes on my post, then I'll delete it, or all of these things. And all of that stuff is external. None of it matters. None of it matters. Be faithful and walk in obedience to God. I knew at that moment when we heard that message, my husband and I both did, that God was calling us to Atlanta. We were coming to be a part of a large multicultural church, and that was going to be it. We thought we were going to retire. And then God started doing these things in our family. There's no way that if you had asked me 15 years ago if I would run a nonprofit, and let me go back a little bit further. If you'd asked me 20 years ago if I would have 8 kids, 4 sons-in-laws, 5 grandkids, have written 4 books, and run a nonprofit, if I would have said yes. I would have said there's absolutely no way. I have no vision for that. I've never even thought about that. There's no way that I saw that. So there was no North Star for me to hang for what God would ultimately call me into. What got me there is getting up in the morning, seeking the Lord,
Yeah.
honoring the Lord, and obeying him with what he put in front of me in that moment, to be the best at letting God lead me in whatever the task was in front of me, whether it was the making the Arby's roast beef sandwich, answering the phone at that car dealership, walking down a red carpet with a music artist, or sending out an email campaign. Like, just making sure that what I put my hands to, I honored God in it, and he led me the rest of the way. And that's what I would say to anybody who gets hung up on this, because it's easy to listen to me talk, and you're like, she's got 4 books, she's running this nonprofit, like she probably worked at that all of her life to do that. No, like, everything that I did prepared me for it, but there was no way I could see it coming.
And honestly, if someone had seen the little 14-year-old in the family that you were raised in, I just want to be transparent. I mean, I look at my own
Mhm,
life, little girl from the farm, the little fish in the little pond.
mhm.
Um, you think, I don't even know where she would have had the voice to do this. Is that okay for me? I mean, like, the
It's
Lord.
perfect for you to say. It was a small coal mining town. All of
Yeah.
my family were machine operators and coal miners, and housewives, like, in a small little Kentucky town, and there was no way to envision any
You didn't
part
even
of
know
this.
how to you didn't even know how to dream this. Recently, the Lord, as we close, gave me a word. He said, "Allison, I want you to live limitless." And if you're listening today, I really believe that the whole point of connection makes it where it can take the limits off. Because what I can do by myself, I can only carry so much. But boy, when I connect with who God's called me to connect with, His
Mhm.
connections, what we can carry and how far we can go and what we can accomplish is above and beyond what I can personally ask, think, imagine, or dream. And I want to tell you today, the Lord told me recently, he said, "Allison, I want you to live limitless." Now, I
Mhm.
want you to have dreams, but when you think of the dreams that you have, I want you to know those are small compared to dreams that I have. And I think the girl that probably dreamed at 16 years old on number 4, looking over at number 6, would have never dreamed that that the Lord had a faithful husband that would be in love with you, would show you love, would show you covenant, would be
Mhm.
committed to what God's called you guys to do together, and that his yes to Jesus was so strong that it was always a yes to you, to the girls. I mean, you could have never dreamed that. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's sweet, and I just wanna tell you today, if you're dreaming of things, I believe the Lord wants you to have dreams, but his ways and his dreams are even greater than that. If you don't bottle your dreams up is what I feel like he's saying.
Exactly,
So,
exactly right. Yep. That's the and I think that that's one of the things that I love the word live limitless because I
mhm,
think God taught me that years ago to quit trying to box myself in. Anything that I said, "Oh God, this is the ultimate. This is all I need to do in my life is a box." Because if I
it
can
is.
see it and I can dream it, it's too small. Because God is much bigger than that. And he's going to take you places. He's taken me places that I could have never asked or imagined. And he's not done. He's not done with me. He's not done with my girls. He's not done with you or anybody listening. As long as you wake up every day, seek his face, honor
Yeah,
him, and are faithful and obedient with everything he asks you to put your hands to, I don't care if that's washing the toddler's laundry for the fourth time
come
today.
on.
That is so important.
It
And
is.
people kind of they downplay the little things. And it's the Bible says that it's in the small things. Like God is there. Your faithfulness in the small things is what's going to bring you to bigger things.
That's
It's your
the
faithfulness.
scripture of the study. No, I was gonna say, I love that scripture. When you're faithful with little, he'll make you ruler over much. And most
Mhm.
of us see the big thing and we're thinking, I can never get there. That's never gonna happen for me. And then we get complacent in the small things, which actually should be the things that we should, Lord, Lord, thank you for my children as you're folding their clothes, as you're cleaning the toilet. Lord, thank you for my husband that I get to clean this bathroom up for because at one time you was just begging for a man. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, Lord, thank you.
And actually, that was another like Genesis moment for me. Is one of my jobs was a key entry operator for the United States Postal Service, and we sit in these long computer filled rooms, and somebody would bring in a Walkman with all of these extenders, so we'd all have headphones on. There were about 8 of us listening to the same thing. One of the girls on my row was a donor to Joyce Meyer, so she brought in all of her tapes all the time. So God set me down, shut my mouth, and it was 8 hours a day of Joyce Meyer. And she was talking about that scripture one day. I was in my early 20s, and she said that these you're out there, you're wanting the big thing, you're wanting to be ruler over much, but you can't even be faithful with a sink full of dirty dishes. And it changed my life
Yeah.
because that's the revelation. That's the moment that I had that revelation that what I put my hands to, whether it's a sink full of dirty dishes or loving on my child in a moment that they actually that I think they've been taken over by aliens. And there's many of those moments when you're just like, who are you? And I don't even know what I'm doing.
I've looked in the mirror before and thought, "That's not me. That's not me." I mean,
True. Yeah, daily. My husband probably thinks that too. What alien took you over? Um, But like being faithful in those moments is where God does expand you, and it's where you learn that calm trust in
Mhm.
who he is, that he's there in the moment. And that's why he can trust you with bigger things, because he can trust you with the sink full of dirty dishes.
He could. Okay, so as we close, I just want to say, if you have any prayer requests, anything going on, please reach out to us at Covenant Church. I'm praying for you, believing for God to do miracles for you. And Pam, with you, why don't you tell them how they can connect with Connection Homes and look up stuff? And let me just say, I believe in being faithful and serving in the house of the Lord, being planted in the house of the Lord. I believe, but I believe that God puts other things in our life for us to give into, be part of. And if you've ever today thought, how can I help someone else? How can I get involved? How can I sow into someone? I just want to tell you, you want to check out Connection Homes because it is a great organization and there are always people needing more love.
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is connections with an S, homes with an S.org. So I encourage you to go there and you can learn a little bit about who we are. There's also a donate button. If you feel like maybe you would love to help a kid that's aging out of foster care, but your life isn't necessarily in that place, that's okay. You can give financially, and that goes to help them. We also are always looking for mentoring families who say, I would be willing to step into a young person's life and kind of be that connection for them. My books, Redemptive Connection and the devotionals, are all on Amazon. Type in Pam Parish with one R. And you can find all of those. And I do encourage you, if you feel God is tugging on your heart about foster care, my first devotion is called Ready or Not. And it's really written for the person who's feeling that tugging to walk through 30 days. Don't just jump into the decision. Walk through 30 days with the Lord and let him really guide you in that decision. And I encourage you to not do it by yourself. If you're single, find another partner that you can, maybe it's your parent or your best friend or whoever that can walk through it with you.
I love that. Pam, I love you. We're gonna have to do this again because I'm thinking, man, I could ask her like 30,000 more questions. You
Anytime I
are
get to talk to you is a blessing.
it is, but I just wanna say you are a well of great wisdom and love and inspiration, and I'm thankful, and I believe that we are, gonna get to hang out soon, and I hope today as you listen that God touched your heart, that you got something, and that today you will not grow weary in well doing, and get excited about washing the dishes in your sink.
Amen.
All right. God bless and talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Allison.
Y'all ready to go?